All right, so up until now, we've already gone through question number 1, 2, and question number 3. And if you look, there's a little bit of pattern as to what I'm doing is that each of our questions is going to help prep us for the following question. So we just reviewed question 3, where we had selected out the professor's name that were included in the grades table. So now if we take a look at the next question, it says, what courses are listed in the fact student grades table? List the course names, not their IDs. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to do something similar to what we did here, except we're going to apply it a little bit differently. And let me show you how that's done. So this was our SQL that we've worked through so far. And what we want to do is make a change to number 3. Now, for simplicity and this exercise, I'm going to go ahead and delete my first 2 queries, and I'm going to keep number 3. I do recommend that you save all of your work, so go ahead and copy and paste some of these SQL queries into a Word file or a text document for your future reference. All right, so now I'm going to work on number 4. So I'm going to copy this, and I am going to simply paste it, and I'm going to give it an option of number 4. Now, let's put these side by side. Let's kind of take a look at what we're being asked. So simply, the only difference than listing the professor names is I want to be able to list the course names. Now, if we wanted to make some adjustments, we need to be able to get an understanding of what is in the tables of not only just the fact table, but also of the course course table. So on the left-hand side, I am going to expand out the fact grades table, and I'm also going to expand out the course section table. And we can see here that there's already a connection that the section ID is going to be the same keys on both of them. We also know that in the fact grades table, that the field that we really want is actually going to be linked to that section ID. And the course name is going to be existing here in the course section. All right, let's see if we can make some changes to this SQL query to kind of make all those connections for us. So first, we want to select distinct. Now, previously we went to little p for professors table, prof name. So this time I'm going to do little c for the course table, and I'm going to do the course name. By the way, this has to be spelled exactly as it is spelled right here. Now I want to select from the fact table, which it has grades, so we use little g, but now I want to change the table. Now before we use the professor table, now we're going to be using the course section table. So now that is dim course section. And since we use little p for professor, we're going to use little c for course. Now this should match whatever we used right here. Those two need to match. Now we need to be able to connect the 2 tables, and we do that here. Previously, I don't know what that was. I hope that didn't screw me. Previously, we used the professor ID from both tables. So on the grade table, now we need to change this from professor ID to section ID. So little g, section ID, boom. Equals, now we changed our table to the course section, and we use the little c to identify that particular table. So we're going to put little c dot, and again, it's going to be section ID, and then it completes our SQL. So let's kind of go over this one more time real quick. So this SQL is really the same as the one before. So you really just kind of look at what our modifications are. So first we want to look at what the course name is. We wanted to look at it in the C table, which we gave the alias right here. We wanted to get it based on what's in the fact student grades table, which we gave an alias of G. And we had to tell SQL that we needed to connect the fact student grades table to get the course name out of the section table or course section table. And the reason why we had to make the connection is because if you look at the fact table here at the left, none of this has the course name. The course name exists over here. So by doing that, we connect the fact table with the course section table, and we have to tell SQL how are those connected. Well, they're connected based on the foreign key of section ID in the grades table with the primary key in the course grade table. And that's what the little g and the little c imply. Let's go ahead and execute this. All right, so the first part here is our professors, and the second part here is our course names. So you can see how simply using these little recipes, we can actually copy and paste some of the SQL and just modify them in order to be able to make our queries. So I want you to use some of these recipes for your own benefit. All right. So let's get into the next part of the assignment. So now we're going to start making this a little bit more complicated. But you'll see that every single one of these, I'm going to give you a small recipe and we're going to make changes. So the next question is, what students have taken the most number of classes? So here is a lot of information. But let's go ahead and type this in and let's see what we get. Now for simplicity, I went ahead and I've included it. I'm going to get rid of both 3 and 4, and I'm just going to start again here with number 5. All right. Now, building off of what we had before, we still have a select statement. We got rid of the distinct. We're going to be selecting the student name. We're going to count the number of section IDs, and we're going to call that the number of classes. Now, if you notice that student name is going to come from a table that we have to identify as S. Now we've created a little from statement, and we're going to get the student name and the section ID from different tables. First, we're going to get the section ID from the fact student grades. We know that because we have a little g right here. And we're going to get the student names from the dimension table of the student. We know that because we have S here and we have the little s right here. With our previous exercise, we had to join both of those on the primary and foreign keys. And so I said that we're going to have the student ID from the student table and then the student ID from the grades table. And if you notice, these are swapped around. And honestly, it shouldn't matter. And in this case, it would probably be better if I made this first one G and the second one S to show that it's going from the grades table to the student table. But it really doesn't matter. Not in this case. Now this next 2 parts is really new. So this first 3 we've kind of seen before. So what we want to do is group everything by the student name. And then we want to order it by the number of classes. So what's going to happen is we're going to get a student's name and the number of classes that they've attended. Right? So basically, we want to group everything as a unique value based on the student's name. And so we'll get John, Mary, Paul, whatever. And then we'll see something that will give us the number of classes to the right. Now, in order to make some sense of this, we want to order this based on the number of classes. So whoever has taken the most classes will be at the top of the list. Now we want, in order to make this order properly, we have to make this a descending list. And a descending list basically goes from Z to A, or a high number to a low number. All right, a lot of information, but let's go ahead and execute this. All right, so now we can see our student names and the number of classes that they've taken, and it's sequenced in the order that from highest to lowest. All right. Now, our next question is going to be looking at a modification of this. So the question is, what professors awards the highest average grade? And I've given you a lot of the information here. So you can already see what kind of things that you're going to want to include. So we already know that here I've given you a real quick, easy clue. That's going to be the professor's table. We've used it in the past. So this will be the dim professor's table, and we'll have to give it the alias P. And then we're going to have to figure out what we're going to join it on. So we have the G table, and this will probably be the professor's ID key. And we'll have the P table, which will also be the professor's ID key. We'll group by the professor's name. And then we'll order by the numeric grade, which we're going to call the average grade. So we'll go ahead and put average grade here. See how it's very similar? So let me show you what this looks like. So I am going to make some replacements. So this will be select p.prof name. Now I've included an option here called cast, and it's because we want to keep numbers relatively small. So it'll be G numeric grade as average grade. From fact student grade to join, and I said it would be the dim professor. P. And it's now going to be the professor ID. I want to get rid of that little thing. And it will be P dot professor ID. Group by P dot professor name. And we're going to order it by average grade, descending. Okay, I have a small error. Let me figure out where my error is. Ah, I see it right here. I forgot to include an extra parentheses. Ah, and then I also forgot to see what I'm going to cast this as. Now, this was actually in our assignment, so hopefully you did a better job than I did at reading the assignment instructions, and that should do it. Boom. All right. We see that Dr. Charlie Chen gives the highest average grade. Now, this is completely false, but hopefully it gives you an idea about how we're going to approach the next two questions, which will be in the next video.